Hello, I'm Danita Yetter, a financial advisor here with Government Employees Benefit Association, better known as GEBA, and I am your presenter for today's topic, how to make the most of what you make. I'm absolutely excited to share this information with you here because at GEBA, we believe education is a cornerstone of financial wellness. And this topic is very near and dear to my heart. And today is full of information. If time allows at the end, I'll be able to answer your questions. If not, we can email GEBA. I just want you to know I'm covering a lot of information, and we have seminars on each one of these topics. And so you can feel free to take a look at our website if you're looking for more information or join a webinar. Lastly, we are going to have a survey at the end of this, and we build these presentations based on your feedback and your interests, so it's important that you fill it out. Thank you so much for coming. Let's get started. So before we begin, let's talk about GEBA for a second. We're a not-for-profit membership association. We were founded in 1957 by NSA employees. We have a volunteer board of federal employees that govern us, and we're trusted by about 16,000 members. We serve all federal employees. Then that means retirees, military, and sponsored family members. Membership is free when you enroll in a plan or service, and GEBA has personalized service, negotiated group rates, and we offer you discounts. So how can we help you? Well, we've got personalized service here by our staff experts. And I want you to know that there's no charge for consultation. There is no obligation. Our staff hold designations that specialize in understanding your federal benefits. And we're here to help you insure and plan and invest for yourself and those that you care about. And better yet, we align with highly rated partners. We have a suite of products that can help you for your unique needs and complement your federal benefits. So let's get started. We're going to cover 7 steps that are a key to getting your financial house in order. So those are getting a read on our current economic climate, determining your net worth, understanding credit scores, knowing where your money goes, figuring out ways to reduce your discretionary spending, increasing your take home pay, making smarter financial decisions that help us down the road. All right. The best way to describe our economic climate right now is highly volatile, and there's continued downward pressure and uncertainty. Right. Historically, if we're going to look at this chart, the past 10 years or so, our annualized return was about 11%, up until about 2024. A lot of movers in that were large corporations in technology and AI innovation, but we are now factoring in tariffs, increased costs of goods, slowing of consumer spending as a result, and this is putting a drag currently on sales and profits. But we look at other key indicators when we look at an economic climate, and that has to do with things like personal savings rate, okay, and that's a bit below historical average at this point. We look at unemployment, and again, underemployment. We look at housing prices, and those were fueled prior by historically low interest rates and a low supply of homes. So let's go back to those 2.5% mortgages, right? And so our current mortgage interest rates are just below 7%. So that creates a squeeze on buyers, and particularly in those entry level homes. So we don't see much hope for change here in 25 because of those types of factors. So we also look towards inflation policy. The Federal Reserve is still looking at having a 2% goal, and there is potential for some rate cuts, but again, that remains to be seen. And lastly, the tax laws back in 2017 for the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act is supposed to sunset this year at the end of 2025. So that would revert back to these higher tax levels. But there is talk about extending those cuts. And so, again, that's to be determined how that impacts us here, not just this year, but the debt it extends in the next years to come. So let's personalize it. a little bit more about our salary and our COLA. So as we look on this chart, you can see from 2016 up into present, government employees have COLA increases, but significant healthcare increases that are not keeping up with the rate of the COLA that we're receiving. And so this trend, while the later years in 21, 22, and onward, we've seen some nice jumps in COLA. It's not keeping pace with the cost of healthcare. And, that again creates a problem for our federal employees. So we've got to focus on what we can control. All right. So what can we control? We can control our net worth. We can control our credit score and credit health, how much we spend, how much we save, and the choices that we make going forward. So let's talk about net worth. So really, net worth is simply how much do you own versus how much do you owe. So to do this, you create a personal balance sheet. It shows your family's assets and liabilities. So assets are things like cash and CDs and valuable items like your car or your home. Liabilities are like debt in all forms. So you subtract your total liabilities from your total assets, and there you have net worth. Okay. And this is a humbling sometimes. It's always very interesting to see what you have, but it helps you develop a laser-like focus on your personal finances. Now, this tool you see on the screen is a calculator, very simple calculator that we have at GEBA, and you can check that out. And I want to say all these links and information, I have a nice references page at the end, so you can see that all consolidated for you. So then we look at our credit scores to help us after we've looked at our debt and our income. So many of us have heard of credit scores, and it directly affects your ability to get a credit card, a mortgage, maybe an auto loan, and a credit score impacts the rate of interest you pay on these loans, and even rental rates in employment too. So, quite frankly, a credit score is a way for a lender to judge their risk of lending to you. So, like everything, it's an algorithm of proprietary factors. It produces a risk score that's created by a company called Fair Isaac Corporation, FICO. It ranges from 350 to 850 points, and it takes a look at all those different levels. So 720 points is considered excellent credit. Anything lower than 620 is a credit risk. There are three agencies that look at credit rating. It's Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian. And each can have slightly different score based on who a lender reports and what they're looking for. So for an example, if you've got an auto lender, they're going to be really looking at something that's auto loan repayment in your history. So let's look at the chart here. The circle chart on the left is a breakdown of scores in the US. And the great news, okay, is that over 71% of people have excellent credit. But there remains room for improvement because over 28% have a score of less than 670. All right, so now let's move to the right-hand chart, and it's going to show the generational management of credit. And the great news here is that each age group does a little bit better than the one before, and that's really not a surprise. But the best part is the trend for each generation. Even our newest Gen Z is keeping up with themselves in the good range for more favorable credit terms. So what determines that credit score? Okay. The keys to a high score are things like history of making on-time payments. Okay, that's a large portion of your total score. So set up those accounts for automatic pay. Number two, the amount and type of outstanding debt you owe. That's 30% of your score. So I want you to think, lower the balance of relative debt compared to your total credit limit, and you're going to get a higher score. So, in other words, keeping your credit card debt maybe under 25% of your maximum allowed available credit can be ideal. Moving on, looks at length of time you've had the same accounts open, the number and types of credit, recent credit applications, and the mix of credit that you have. So I want to point out that if you've had more than three recent hard credit checks, that can negatively affect your score. So when you're shopping for a lender, consider this. Try to do that legwork before you really set up with someone or a corporation that you want to lend from. Okay, so a good score can have banks competing for your business. All right, and a bad score means maybe you won't qualify so well for that auto mortgage or credit card rate, or it could be very high, and that high rate is going to cost you money each month. So, as you can see in the chart, the difference between having a really good credit, right, like back at the 760, and OK credit at 660 can cost you a difference of about 136 bucks a month, and that's about $1,632 a year. All right. So when we're putting that in terms of an entire 30-year mortgage, that's well over $48,000. There's a link at the bottom, and it's to myfico.com and credit education. And that's run by the company that created the FICO score. It has great information about FICO scores and that impact on your monthly interest payment. All right. It's also important to review your credit score yearly. So to get your credit reports for free, visit annualcreditreport.com, or if you prefer, call the number on the site. All right. Both of those have been set up by the three nationwide consumer reporting companies. Again, that is TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. And they must, by law, provide you with a free copy every 12 months. This allows you to correct any errors and do what you need to do to clean that up before you go shopping for a loan. So if you are correcting a mistake, check back in about 30 days, 6 weeks, see if it's been fixed. And you can even set up a strategy where you check one company quarterly. But I want to just draw your attention to something here is that sometimes there are opportunities to buy services on these sites. So you really have to be careful that you don't unintentionally commit yourself to something by checking some of these blocks. So again, take a look at that when you start. And have your financial documents handy. Things like bank statements, monthly payments, so you can answer those security questions when prompted. All right, let's talk about where your money goes. And so you can't create a budget or a spending plan until you know where your money goes. So set aside some time, queue up those bank and credit card statements, go back about 4 to 6 months, and some items are about a year if they're infrequent. And you're looking for things like tax bills, insurance, auto, home repairs, and get to work. So this is how you're going to build your budget. A budget is simply taking your monthly fixed expenses, prorate those estimated variable expenses, and subtract them from your joint income. And this is going to tell you where your money goes. It's going to help you identify opportunities to reduce spending. You can develop those realistic savings goals. You can set ground rules for how you spend money. And the results are going to surprise you. I mean, it just like net worth, it can be really eye-opening to see what you spend your money on. And this is just an Excel spreadsheet tool that we have on our website. Very basic, very simple, but it gets the job done. And some people still even work off of paper, but you can take a look at this. But apps make tracking easier. And so let's talk about those. But even then, there are some key things an app might have or a bank, credit union that offers something like that that they should have. First off, they should have something to deal with a budget, something to deal with checkbook management, like money in your account, and often money tips. And you can go to places like nerdwallet.com, and they've got some education, if you're like wanting to find something that would work best for you. But I've got some listed here. We're going to go over those. To be noted, Many have a modest fee, and some can be fairly significant for robust features if you want to take a lot of control in your spending. So let's start with the first one. It's You Need a Budget, and it is a fantastic beginner app. You can track your income and your expenses and how you allocate items. You can prepare for unexpected expenses. You can reduce debt. Another great one is Credit Karma, used to be mint.com. You can automatically categorize your purchases, so it does it for you. And then you can look at, what am I spending on groceries, gas, rent, restaurants, and onward. It allows you to chart trends and help you set up a budget so you can work on maybe spending less in a certain targeted area. Next one that's great is Empower Personal Dashboard. Used to be known as Personal Capital years ago. It's got a multitude of features, budgeting, net worth. It's got an investment management platform. You can track spending. Quicken can make reports for you. Pocket Guard is for those who, is a spender that might benefit from preset spending limits. Good Budget makes that old school envelope systems digital for you. Honeydew is fantastic for couples, and Stash allows you to put extra money from your budget into an investment of your choice, buying fractional stock shares. Again, here's some words of wisdom. And really, when we look at a budget, I want you to think of these three categories. I need to have it. It's nice to have and completely unnecessary. And when you're thinking about that, think about these words about spending money that you don't have on things that you don't need to impress people that you don't even like. Again, make it meaningful for you. Budgeting, your choices are what's important to you and meaningful to you and your family. So now we're looking at, how can we increase earnings? All right. Simply put, you can take hobbies and skills into a second income. Everybody's doing it. It's the hustles that we've all got, from teaching to lawn care to driving for Lyft and Uber. These side hustles really can help you. Um, just so you know, other people do e-stores, handmade crafts, product reviews. A big one I'm seeing, of course, in the past 2 years is that freelancing of skills, everything like writing, virtual assistant, IT support. And there's some web portals here, and some websites here that let you put your name out there, and you can apply. Specialty skills work really well for any remote jobs. And of course, look at affiliate marketing, influencer marketing. But you can do all kinds of uh, marketing, even through social media, if that's something that. Again, 20% Americans have so much stuff that they have self-storage space. What you don't sell can be donated to a charitable organization. You get a nice tax write-off for the value of those goods. And lastly, the concept of bartering is increasingly popular. Sites like FreeCycle and BuyNothing.com help you trade in items you don't need for items you do through a community. And lastly, again, a sharing economy. You see up there renting houses, renting cars, to help you bring in some extra income. So, what happens if you do have some extra money, such as a tax refund? So, what should you do with it? Well, pay off your debt. Start with that. Concentrate on paying off debt with the highest interest rate first. Usually, that's credit card debt, and it's like getting 20% or more on your money, and it's great for a short term. Car loans are second. Paying off a mortgage is really last, and that's because it usually has the lowest interest rate, and in many cases, it's tax deductible. So you consider that hierarchy. Debt reduction and taking control through a budget and consistent debt reduction tactics can have a marvelous stress reducing effect, and it can add to the quality of your life. So, some other things you can do with your refund, that can include contributing to an IRA, filling any gaps in your insurance coverage, such as a health savings account or flexible savings account, building college savings if you've got kids that are coming up on that, adding to that emergency fund, and make sure that you have at least 6 months worth of expenses saved. You can also invest in your home's energy efficiency, and it saves money on your energy bills, and you can write it off. So decreasing spending now throughout your home. So many of us grew up in smaller homes with less things, and now we've had this social cycle of bigger is better. But we're also seeing individuals reversing that trend now away from these trophy houses and trying to strike a balance between their home costs, their student loans, and quality of life. So a house really is one of the largest assets that people have. Downsizing, if it makes sense, can unlock a value for you. And that's because it's not just perhaps the gain on the difference of the mortgage versus the sale, but think of all of those thousands of dollars that are being spent on like mortgage payments, property taxes, house and ground maintenance. And so it really could be better invested somewhere else, like paying off debt, saving for retirement, a child's education. And again, big expensive homes aren't generally the best investment. The gain that you're getting by holding on that house is reduced by that drag of that carrying cost. And so, you have to think about when you think about income and appreciation. But to speak more about the challenge of that is that we're finding that our older generations are not downsizing, right? About 20% move into a facility, 20% are aging in place. And because we're not seeing the downsizing, it has this vicious, tight housing cycle. And so that opens the door nationwide of a conversation, a serious conversation for senior housing, so that way we can have our younger generations have a chance at home ownership. So looking again at your homes, current mortgage rates were historically low, as I mentioned before, for purchasing and for refinance. And now they're higher when compared to that. But if it makes sense, you can unlock some money from your budget and from a mortgage by switching potentially to a 15-year rate. And it makes sense if it's more than 1% reduction and if you've got very good to excellent credit. So you can also look to your lender as well and see if there can be a rate modification if you didn't want to do the entire formal refinance process. Um, Next up in helping your home is energy costs. And this is a big slice of a typical household's budget, and that's heating and cooling. So, water, lighting, it accounts for about 10%. So, heating and cooling by using a maybe programmable thermostat allows you to set that temperature higher, um, well, as high as you can tolerate it in the summer, and as low as you can in the winter, and setting it for when you're away or when you're asleep. So it has an automatic cycle. So I've seen in some of the literature that for every degree that you're setting that air conditioning above 72 degrees, it's going to save you 3 to 5% on your energy bill. All right. And other hacks that you can do is looking at maybe your dishwasher's air dry option, or turn it off when it's done, crack the door after the final rinse cycle. And you can save on hot water that way, but you can also look at to your laundry. So switch from that hot wash and warm rinse to maybe warm cold or cold cold. In the past few years, I've seen better cold water detergent available, and so that will help with your heating bill for the energy for that hot water. You can look to replace appliances, looking for Energy Star models. Again, a quarter of all homes have an energy sucking second refrigerator hidden away in a garage or a basement. And so, I challenge you to take a look and say, do I really need it? Does it help me? I used to have a wine refrigerator and it was costing me at least $10 or more a month when it was plugged in. And so we just found a better way to store. And lastly, you can look at those vampire appliances and electronics like TVs and computers and fast chargers. And those use energy even when they're turned off. And so, looking at that, you can maybe try switching it off on a power switch, try using sensors. I have for my son, it's on an old school dial. It's allowed to be on for a certain amount of hours and then it just automatically clicks off. And so that's been helping us. So you can look at energy.gov is a great website for getting information and ideas on how to save more energy and therefore more money. Another way to look at decreased spending in your home is maintenance, again, for your home and your car. Spending money on oil changes, while it can seem expensive, it really does help. And it's way more uh, cost economical than shelling out, $1,500 for car repair or new tires sooner than you need. I want to bring something up here is that looking at those cable TV, those satellite subscription services, all of that. Those are an excellent place to cut. Are you paying for something you're not watching? Maybe it was a service that sounded great at the time, but you forgot to turn it off as a free trial. And so, as of April 13th, 2025, a new consumer ruling has come across that it has to be just as easy um, to end your subscription as it is to add your subscription. It has to be prominently displayed. You don't have to go through so many clicks. And so take a look at those sites that maybe you signed up for. Are they serving you well? Do you want them anymore? And again, look to see if there's also, let's say you need that particular or you like that particular service like Netflix. Do you need it for all the devices? Maybe you can get the price break on one to two devices rather than multiple. So let's move on to phone. Um, Again, reviewing your plan. Does it fit your need? See where you can eliminate services or bundle and package services with other family members to save. I found out that I had an old tablet sitting on my plan and break fix protection for a phone I didn't even own anymore. So you'd be surprised. And lastly, do you need a home phone? Some people do. But there is voice over internet protocols now that you can get rather than having to have that plan hardwired into your house. And that happens to be a great thing for those that you really feel like you need a landline phone for, such as maybe your older generation or for a teen household when they don't pick up their cell phone. Another place to look is your insurance, and you can realize substantial savings in insurance. You can analyze your need and the rate that you're charged. Ask for all of the discounts, and then look to increase the deductible if it makes sense in your budget. When you increase a deductible, it can reduce the premium, and you have to have that money set aside. So just keep that in mind. If you rent, rental insurance is available, it's affordable. And lastly, talk to your insurer about any positive changes that you make, like a new roof or an HVAC system, a security system. Read that fine print of your policy, get on the phone and talk to them, understand what you're paying for. Maybe see if there's something that's not covered that you need covered. Let's say a new shed or sump pump. Okay. Auto is much like home insurance. Ask for those discounts. Consider that deductible and look at the value of the car that's to be insured. And if you have policies with multiple insurers, you can save substantially by bundling them together in something called a multi-asset discount. And GEBA members are eligible for a discount through Farmers Group Select for auto, home, and renter. And it really does pay to shop around. Lastly, umbrella insurance provides additional coverage beyond the limits of your home and your auto insurance. And that is, there's a limit to your auto insurance. Let's say it's $250,000. Umbrella insurance can kick up beyond that. So in an event of something catastrophic happening, you can have coverage. Usually it's sold in, lot round numbers like about 1 million or 2 million. So this is where your net worth comes in, understanding so you know how much you need to protect yourself. Again, let's look at gasoline to help us decrease spending, right? Gas is expensive. It's on the rise. And so I'm going to give you a little physics lesson here. And this is something I learned from the Department of Energy. A little shout out to them that if you are keeping your speed under 60, your fuel efficiency is going to peak. So between 35 miles per hour, 60 miles per hour, that's where your peak energy efficiency is. So it driving beyond that, you actually pay an additional 24 cents per gallon for gas. Why, you ask? Well, that's because at higher speeds, your car encounters more wind resistance and the tires meet more rolling resistance. And so there you go. Also, you probably saw this hack last year, turning down the air conditioning in your car. And what I mean by that is making it warmer. So you can save up to about 15% on fuel during the months that you use the AC. You can use the vent recirc cycle, and it helps cool that car quicker, and it helps keep that car cool longer, and it uses less gas. But don't roll down your windows if you're going to be driving over 50 miles per hour. Why? Back to that physics lesson. It increases wind resistance, and that wind resistance negates any gain that you get from shutting off the AC. Lastly, again, losing that lead foot, making more gentler starts and stops, and not so quick on the accelerations can help your fuel costs. And lastly, comparing prices. A small area, small driving area can have as much as 30 cents difference or more per gallon. I tested it out, and it's just true. There are apps and that you can use to sort of track gas. And you can look at those warehouse memberships. You might be able to save 5 cents or more, 20 cents per more every time you fill up. And that maybe help you pay for that membership if it makes sense with the other things that they offer. So let's look at healthcare. That's another place you can decrease your spending. So personal insurance premiums, out-of-pocket medical expenses, it continues to rise. We talked about that. Um, but what you may not know is that prices of health services can vary from provider to provider, so you can shop around, and it is the law. But also within your doctor's network, look at your plan's preferred provider network first, so you can take advantage of lower copays. But let's say you're sick and you can't see your regular doctor. Really avoiding the ER if you're not doing emergency care needs. So you can look to non-urgent care centers. You can look at in-network walk-in clinics, and you can see virtual visits for minor issues. All right, looking at prescriptions, you can use a mail order pharmacy, ask for a 90-day supply, and that's where the discount is. Talk to your doctor if generic equivalents make sense for you and why you have that drug. Move on to spending in your flexible spending accounts, and that's where you can prepay your medical expenses tax free. We're going to talk about that later, so I'm just throwing that one out. And lastly, there are commercial prescription savers such as GoodRx. It bears noting, right? You can take that prescription and shop for those local pharmacies. And I've used it and it's really helped me. Lastly, try to understand your health care. Is a high deductible plan really right for you? You have to judge against what you're paying out as to what the medical needs that you have. Okay, quick chart here that shows the cost savings by using urgent care rather than ER. Again, non-life threatening illnesses. When you can't see your doctor, urgent care, smaller net walk-in clinics like CVS Minute Clinics, and virtual visits for non-urgent issues. All right, so let's look at banking and credit fees. That's another way to decrease spending. Banks continue to lean on those fees to make money, and there's a lot of regulatory pressure that they have. So this takes a bite out of their profits. So consider your ATM fees, overdraft, check fees, right? Try to eliminate those fees. And you can do that by maintaining the minimum balance. So you have to know it. Use a direct deposit, use a bill pay. Look for those in-network ATMs. And a trick I tend to use, and maybe others do too, is getting cash back at a grocery store. Another way is to look at those credit cards and using them to your advantage. And it's great if you can pay in full because it's like a 30-day interest-free loan. There's rewards and cash backs and all kinds of benefits. But again, you never want to use that and have a late fee because it really negates that benefit. And a lot of credit cards also charge an annual fee. So it really has to balance itself out. And lastly, it's important that you pay the balance monthly. And as with those store cards, if they're only encouraging you to spend more than you need to, put them away or don't have them at all. All right. Another way to decrease spending is through shopping. Sometimes you can get what you want, but you can't get it exactly when you want it. So, most people know that you can save on clothes by shopping in the middle or the end of a season. But did you know that there's an actual shopping calendar? All right. And I'm going to have that the next slide. But I want to hit here is that you can also use apps like Ibotta and Ebates, right? All of those. Um, and they can help you with finding sales, coupon codes, promo codes. It changes all the time. Here's that shopping calendar. And I got this off of Reader's Digest. For example, most people know you can get a TV and those white sales for bedding, but March is travel season, so luggage. And who knew that April is for tires? But I want to say that when you look at back to school, so for us in Maryland, it's August that you can buy tax-free items during August for back to school. So clothing and footwear, and that's footwear priced $100 or less. There's no sales tax on it. And the first $40 of the cost of backpacks. So get to know your state if they have a tax-free back to school special. And you can jump on that even if you don't have kids. And lastly, keep your eyes out for those crazy online sale dates like Wayfair, July for Amazon, Prime sales, and that can help you with those items that you've set aside. So I use this strategy and it really helps with clothing for children. So quality name brands, right? They can be found at thrift stores, secondhand boutiques, virtual garage sales, and it's easy when you do the three, which is strategize, simplify, and shop those sales. So strategize by knowing what you have in your closet, and I do this with my kids every season. Simplify with a neutral base of colors and then add those pop trendy items in as a shirt or what have you. and then shop those sales, knowing when they are, and getting all those discounts. But additionally, looking at the maintenance of that garment, dry cleaning is very expensive when you're looking at professional wear, but there are at-home kits. So you can consider the garment's use, maybe even some can tolerate air drying rather than having to be dry cleaned. So looking at another place to unlock savings, that's in groceries and gifts. So again, most people take a good look at the weekly circular when you go shopping at a grocery store. But really, it's all about meal planning, making a list and sticking to it, and not going to the grocery store hungry. People have said that, but it really is true. You tend to buy more if you're hungry. Look at those warehouse clubs like Costco, Sam's, BJ's. They let you save more in bulk, but do you really need multiple of them? Do the math. Figure it out. Does it really save you that much more? Consider those meal planning services and those meal subscriptions. Does it make sense more to have freezer meals and meal planning at home rather than having those subscriptions? Does it really save you? Coupons are moving, to a digital, so you really have to sign up more and more for that. But I want to talk about gifts. When it comes to gifts, you can simplify your life. You can limit the number you buy. And you can work with your family members and saying, maybe we can do drawing a name out of a hat, or some sort of shared group gift rather than feeling like you always have to buy. And you can think ahead too. What's meaningful to them? What's meaningful to you? And targeting that, rather than just shopping as the holiday or as the event approaches. Let's look at travel. Most people know that you can sign up or use different filters like Orbitz, Hotwire, Priceline. But I learned about Hopper, which tells you when it's the best time to fly. Most people look at frequent flyers and lodging and airport, but use all of them. Know the rules, particularly with luggage. Look at those points. Are you paying more? Is it really worth it? So shop around, even if you are getting points, let's say, with a particular airline. So I just want to bring up something that I've had some friends use, and it's looking at a family vacation. They've used roadscholar.org. It's an educational and travel organization. It has comfortable, inexpensive housing that's at a group tour rate in about 90 countries worldwide. And it's really all ages. And so it's very helpful with getting maybe that dream or that once in a lifetime vacation at a discount. And if you're someone that perhaps doesn't like tours but really wants to travel for less, you can look at extended stays in something called like a home exchange. You're trading homes, which is different than Airbnb. And so you offer your home and you stay in someone else's. So just a few other little things to decrease spending. Again, everybody knows, uh, eating in rather than eating out. But I just want to target this too, that it isn't about deprivation, really. It's about finding what's important to you and finding control. So, for example, for myself, I commit that I'm going to eat out 1 day a week. I really want to. On Friday, it just gives me that break. So, those other days during the week, I'm committed to bringing my lunch and I try to plan for that. And cutting back really does work. But it also gives you that meaningful break that you can feel that staying within a budget doesn't have to be drudgery and you're not sacrificing. So another place to look is children's expenses. And I know, childcare, activities, birthday parties, and more, right? It's really easy to overindulge. But when I think about what I've taught my own children, it's important to teach them not just to survive, but to thrive financially in this world. And that value of a dollar, it really is important. Um, the Journal of Consumer Affairs talked about people ages between 23 and 28 really just don't have the ability to answer basic questions about economics and investing. And so we can pass those lessons on to our family with age appropriate conversations over time. Um, and I just want to highlight two more here is that we can use those discount group services like Groupon, Living Social, Certificate. Living frugally does not mean deprivation. So we can find a way to make things work within our budget, again, meaningful and with our own control. Lastly, look at those local library. Lots of things are free. You can get a lot of help there for many different things. And lastly, with fur babies, I don't want to forget them, you can look at pet sitting as an exchange with your friends and neighbors, low cost vaccine clinics, and that way you can help your fur loved one at less cost. All right, let's talk about your wage and earnings statement. So it is important to double check that pay stub and make sure you're being paid properly. Make sure to correct the amounts if they're incorrect, and verify what is being deducted from your health and other coverages. Um, so that way there's no surprises at the end of the year. And make sure those that are supposed to be deducted pre-tax are. So look at those withholding amounts and adjust as necessary. And it's really easy. It truly is. You just have to look at a W-2, file that with your HR department. The IRS has a withholding calculator, and you can get that adjustment done pretty quickly. Many people justify their withholding as sort of like a big surprise at the end of the tax year and it's forced savings. But I'm going to argue this. Um, is it really forced savings when you aren't in control of where it's kept? You can't invest it and you don't have access to that money. So it is just as important to look at all of those withholdings and deductions because, again, this is what's funneling into your pipeline for your budget. All right. While we're on the subject of payroll deductions, I'm back to that flexible savings and spending account. And this is an account where you contribute money from your salary before taxes are withheld. So you then get reimbursed by showing receipts for your eligible out-of-pocket health care and dependent care expenses. And I see them listed there, and it changes annually. But let's talk about how it works. So let's say you go to the doctor and you have $20 copays. You go 3 times a year and you have prescriptions for your family that's about $100 a quarter. So we've got 460 known expenses that you then would be asking to be put into the FSA, right, as a pre-tax dollars. Then once you have those, you submit receipts and it's distributed to you. So I was thinking about small change. Small habits can really lead up to big money changes. But also small change is a great tool for kids as well. We do a lot of things now digitally, and so we don't see change as much. But you can also influence your children by having that change, paying for tasks, things that they do, putting it in a jar. It's a beautiful visual example of saving. When it accumulates enough, then they can deposit it maybe into a savings account, and it shows how quickly it adds up. It's an incentivizer. And again, we can teach our kids from just spare change. All right, we talked about before money that is suddenly found. So if you get something again like tax return, but something maybe different, what would you do? Again, go back to those insured areas of your life like disability, auto, home renters, pay down debt, start with the debt that's the highest first, then start looking into retirement savings, such as like your TSP. Make sure you have your emergency fund set up. And then you can even have other little saving categories like a new car or a home project, a dream vacation. Okay. And online banks make this very easy. So when you set it, you can forget it, but it's also maybe out of access. So it can even go to something that's different, a different bank than the one you normally pay your bills from. Again, discretionary spending, it's really only what's left over, and it doesn't mean it has to be spent. Target it towards other saving goals. So let's talk about the TSP. Now, we have a whole webinar on this, so I'm really not going to get too much into the mechanics of how one invests, but I want to talk about how the FERS matching does work. So you can see on the chart that you put in. So as you go up, right, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5%, um, you automatically get a 1% automatic contribution. But look to that third column, the agency matching. As you put more in, they put more in. Okay. So let's go across to 3%. You put in 3%, automatically you get your 1%. Then the agency matches 3. Your total contribution then is actually 7. All right. And you can see how it goes up. And so, really, if you're able to put in 5%, get that automatic contribution of 1, agency matches 4, really your total contribution is 10%. 5% of that is on the government, and that's not a bad deal. All right. Again, insurance, let's make sure that you're covered, know the value, and make the most of your health care and other insurance coverages. Beyond checkups and sick leaves, you want to make sure that you really are looking into getting that at the appropriate level for what you need. Use your well visits carefully. But there's also carve out benefits such as vision and dental. Do the math. See if it really is a value for you. For example, some prescriptions, lenses and frames are $200 and $300 at different stores. You can shop around, know if that fits in with a plan that you have, and maybe tailor the plan that you want to buy with what is the going cost in your area. Lastly, this long-term disability that protects against those unforeseen circumstances. And so that it's like a paycheck protector. There is a study that shows the average long-term disability absence is about 34 months. That's really almost 3 years, and that's a long time to go without steady income. So the Council for Disability Awareness wants to let you know that that is something that you have to plan for too in your budget. And to learn the basics of long-term disability insurance, there's a great site, insure.com, that will talk about that and get into the mechanics. Life insurance is another insurance that protects your family and your assets. All right. And this is in the case of the loss of your earning ability due to death. So let's talk about term. Generally speaking, it comes in fixed term periods like 10, 20, 30 years. And that point of that insurance is to satisfy a specific need for a term of years. And it's used to cover things such as a mortgage or the care education of a child. It is more cost effective than permanent insurance. Permanent insurance, it's all in the name. It lasts your whole lifetime and it guarantees a payout to your heirs. However, it costs significantly more because as we age, the cost to supplement the cost of your insurance grows. So, what it does is effectively it creates level premiums throughout your lifetime. And it's really used to supplement the survivor and provide maybe legacy planning or help with a special needs child. Again, it lasts as long as you live, and it can be structured to be paid up either your throughout your whole life or in shorter time periods. Let's say 10 years you pay it off, or 15. Long-term care insurance, again, we give a whole webinar on this. And the point is that in the event that you suffer from a long-term prolonged illness, disability, or cognitive impairment, it's designed to help pay for assistance with daily living, home health care, respite care, hospice care. And, and that's because the cost of taking care of that elderly individual tends to fall on the family. And so we want to avoid a financial hardship. As you've noticed, the ltcfed.com has paused enrollment. GEBA is here to help you with that, and you can investigate all kinds of plans that we can maybe take a look at what your needs are from blue chip insurances and carriers, depending on what's important to you. Again, you can contact GEBA for more information if you feel that's appropriate for you. Let's talk about responsible credit use, and it's really hard to eliminate debt, um, but it's important to know that FICO score and to monitor those credit reports annually to make sure that you qualify for the best possible rate. Um, your mortgage should be limited to 28% of your monthly net income, and that includes things like mortgage principal, interest payments, taxes, insurance, and maintenance. So take a look at your property tax assessments. Look at those increases. How does that impact your budget? And I keep going back to that. Look at what you're paying, look at what you have, adjust that budget. And again, knowing that FICO score and monitor it for your own protection. So let's set some saving priorities. Really, you need 3 to 9 months, depending of living expenses and a money market or similar account. And what I mean by that is something that can be liquidated on a 1 day notice in case you have to deal with the unexpected. All right. And so this all depends on the size of your family, amount of debt that you have, the insurance coverage. All right. Having a substantial emergency fund keeps you from having to tap into retirement funds or taking loans from your retirement funds or borrowing at unfavorable rates in a crisis. You can use your long term savings to allocate again for home, education, car renovation. But the point is to save it and forget it. It's a great idea to do that automatic transfer because what you don't see, you won't spend. And pay yourself first. So automatic payments on credit card bills really helps again your your score. But I want you to think about it this way. You can have separate accounts like savings, like a bucket. Again, vacation, holiday, down payments, maybe for a new home, maybe for a new car. And that way you have that automation in your savings. But I do want to point out two really cool apps of interest: Acorns and Capital. Acorns invests spare change. Capital sets a goal based on behavioral economics. Both of them use something called auto investing and dollar cost averaging. So that's investing by using dollars slowly over time. All right, so just go to Capital first. They let you set rules for automating savings. So you can use the app maybe to round up to the spare change to the nearest dollar, and it'll take that spare change and move it to an amount in like a FDIC, Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation bank account, or if you want an investment account. To use that, you need to have connected with your checking, okay, to the app, and you can set those goals. Capital lets you automatically transfer those funds into an investment after you reach a certain budgeted amount. It can also maybe flag things as guilty pleasure for you to help you maybe get back on track. But the point here is the money is moved automatically without having to think about it or having to remind yourself. Again, there are fees for using these types of apps, and it can be substantial. But I want to say this much: a program like Capital, okay, withdrawing money from those accounts takes several business days. This is not a place that you would necessarily put an emergency account. Acorns, it rounds up your purchases from your linked credit cards or linked debit cards, and it rounds up to the nearest dollar and puts it in an investment account. So it's an investing platform rather than banking and investing. Okay, so that means that money, right, is going to go into a portfolio based on your income, your goals, and your tolerance for risk. And really, they try to use different kinds of choices for yourself. You can look at it as you want, and there is fees depending on the plan. But both of these plans, all right, if your money is going into an investment portfolio, your savings may decrease if there's a dip in the markets, right? Depending on where you've allocated your money. So if it's in a bank, a little bank account, that's one thing. But if in an investment portfolio, it is subject to market volatility, depending. So again, you've heard that past performance doesn't equal future results, right? So an investment account is not FDIC insured. It can lose value. And so again, need to know about that. What is the point and the purpose of those funds going into that account? Lastly, just like capital, it can take several days for Acorn to also withdraw money from that account. So, and that's because the shares that you're buying must be sold first. All right. So, do you have any rules about discretionary spending? I hope you do. So, again, I've said before, it's not about deprivation. It's about making meaning out of what you are spending, what matters the most. Pick a limit and try to stick to it. So, I just want to summarize very quickly as we've reached the end of our time here together that it's important when you want to make the most of what you make to know your net worth and monitor that annually. Review your credit report, make a budget, check to see that your deductions are in line and correct, clear out your clutter, and start that smarter spending. And by following that, really, you're going to make the most of what you make and you're going to appreciate and make meaning out of what you have as well. I appreciate you coming today, taking time, having interest in this topic. And again, I kindly ask that you complete this evaluation ticket as you exit because what I cover is based on what is important to you. And if you have questions for GEBA, feel free to email us. Here is the slide with all the information on it, and you can reach out to us. And thank you very much again, and take care.